Not 20. I digress. A few years ago, I was where you are now. So, basically, Lacey just did my introduction, and thank you, Lacey, for that. I came to Auburn in the fall of 1990, and sadly, I would love to stand up here and say Auburn was my first choice, but it wasn't. I had the idea that I was going to leave the state of Alabama. I was going to get out of this place. And some of you probably thought the same thing. Well, we had a very personal family issue going on. My mother had breast cancer. My older sisters were in college, and my mother was an educator, so there was not the option of not going to school. Her kids were going to go to school. It didn't matter. We were going to school, and my dad was the same way. Everyone in this house is going to school, and they're going to get a degree. We don't care where you go, you're going somewhere. And so my sisters were in school, and they were at UAB, and I was at home. I'm 6 years behind my older sister, and I was there as one of the primary caretakers for my mother. And something just kept telling me, you need to apply to some in-state schools. Now, mind you, some of the in-state schools, they came to me without me even having to apply. But I applied to Auburn and that other university on the other side of the state. But Auburn made my decision just that much easier to make because they showed an interest in me, and it didn't hurt that they offered me a little money to come here. And that might be why some of you are here today. And so were it not for someone like those of us on the Diversity Council funding scholarships, maybe I wouldn't have ended up at Auburn. I was probably, I would say I'm first generation. I had one cousin who came to Auburn, and he played football with Bo Jackson. That's his claim to fame. And, but since that time, I was the second one, and subsequently, I have a niece who's here now. But the thing about it is, I wouldn't trade my Auburn experience for anything. So, 1 week into my freshman year, I lost my mom. Toughest thing. If you've ever lost a parent, it's the toughest thing you have to go through. Imagine being a freshman away from home. Never mind, it's only 45 minutes away from here, but I was still away from home. My older sister had just had a baby, so that meant I was no longer the baby. And my father was deployed stateside for Operation Desert Storm. So there were a lot of life changes going on for me as an 18-year-old. A lot of life changes. A lot that could have easily made me just quit. And were it not for my network here at Auburn, I got involved in different organizations. Even when I didn't want to get involved, those organizations made me get involved. Ironically, like I said, my mother was an educator. Someone she used to teach with has a church here in Auburn, and they knew I was a freshman here. And so they adopted me into their student program, and they couldn't have placed me with a better family. So hence goes my spiritual upliftment. They kept me involved in the church. Plus the organizations here, if you're not involved, Black Student Union, National Society of Black Engineers, or the American Chemical Society, I was in everything. I was in gospel choir, you name it. If they needed members, I was in it. I got involved, they kept me involved, and they kept me motivated. I really did want to quit. I honestly wanted to quit, but the Auburn family wouldn't let me quit. They didn't give up on me, so I didn't give up on them. So, kind of fast forward, and I promise you, this is about to wrap up. I just want to motivate you and let you know that my Auburn story could possibly be your Auburn story. So, you heard Lacey tell you that I, graduated, went on and got my master's degree. And I did 11 years in public health. I was a regulator, a government regulator. That means people who don't want to deal with me had to deal with me. They didn't have a choice. And if I went in there, most times I was my usual jovial self. But sometimes I could go in there with an attitude, I admit it. But they still had to deal with me because I knew they had to deal with me. And I made the decision several years ago that I was going to change careers and become a pharmaceutical sales rep. That was when reality really set in that we don't even have to let you in our door. We don't have to deal with you at all. And I'm sitting there thinking, what on earth have I done? I was so comfortable where I was. So comfortable. And now I'm out here, these people are like, I hate your drug. Don't come in here trying to sell me anything. You didn't go to med school. You can't talk to me about anything. Well, I'm in this office that was notorious for their treatment of pharmaceutical reps, or mistreatment, should I say. And on several occasions before, I'd gone in there and the doctor had given me that spiel, you can't say anything to me, you just leave whatever you, let me sign for whatever I need to sign for, and you just get on out of here. So one day I'm in there talking to his nurse, who happens to be from Notasulga. And she was like, you don't know where that is. I said, I do know where Notasulga is. I went to school at Auburn and I sang in gospel choir. We went and sang at this little church in Notasulga. I know exactly where it is. And she said, okay. So she's like, well, when were you at Auburn? And she starts just asking me questions. And this doctor comes out of an exam room and he overhears the conversation. And he has his glasses down on his nose. And he's looking over the rim and he was like, young lady, did I just hear you say that you went to Auburn University? You talking to me? That's basically what I said to him. I'm like, you remember you told me I couldn't say anything to you. I could not talk to you in here. I didn't go to med school. I can't talk to you about medicine. And so he said, well, when were you there? So I guess he's trying to see if I'm bluffing. I was there in the early 90s. Well, where'd you get your degree in? And I said, biochemistry. Well, that's what I got my undergraduate degree in from Auburn University. I was like, oh, really? And so I decided I would turn the tables on him. And I said, well, sometimes I didn't think I was going to make it out of there because we had to take all that chemistry. It was just unbearable. And I said, and that one P-Chem class, and he said, my word, please tell me you're not talking about Dr. Ward's class. Those of you who've been around Auburn for a long time remember Dr. and Dr. Ward. Mrs. Dr. Ward taught physics. Mr. Dr. Ward taught P-Chem. And for those of us in biochemistry, we had to take all three. See, we were on quarters when I was in school here. We weren't on semesters. We had to take all three in the series. And that last one was only taught in the spring. And if you didn't pass that class, you were going to have to wait a whole year before you could take it in, try to pass it, and graduate. So it was really all or nothing. Couldn't go to Tuskegee, couldn't go to Georgia Tech, couldn't go anywhere and take that class. You had to take it here. And he said, are you talking about the little old man? Him and his wife used to drive the little metal bikes all over. They had the little baskets on the front, something your great-grandparents probably have in the garage. They had the baskets on the back and on the front. And I was like, he was like, Lord have mercy. You mean to tell me you can't be older than, well, gosh, I took that man in 1972. And I started laughing, and he was like, what's so funny? I said, I was born in 1972. And he was like, good Lord. And he said, did he tell y'all the story about being there when Einstein, when E equals MC squared was developed? I was like, yeah, he told us that, and he told us how I came into it, everything. He was like, my word, is he still alive? And he just starts talking to me, and then finally he says, well, what are you selling today? And I said, oh, well, honestly, I wasn't ready to detail him because he was so, so used to him saying, don't talk to me, you can't talk to me about medicine, you can't talk to me about anything. Now I had the opportunity to sell him on something, and I'm like, at a loss for words. To this day, that probably happened 6 years ago when I go into his office. Now, come on in my office, Angela, sit down. We have to talk a little bit about Auburn football, his disgust for the team last year and everything. We have to go through all of that. And finally he says, okay, how am I doing with your products? You ain't doing so good, Doc. You need to write some more. Well, I'll see what I can do. Now tell me again. And he actually is interested in what I have to say. The thing is, I had to use my Auburn connection. Didn't know I had the Auburn connection. But I said all of this to say, your Auburn story, you don't realize you're building the foundation for your Auburn story right now. 10, 15, 20 years from now, Auburn can take you to places unbelievable. Do you honestly believe in 1994 when I was graduating that I thought I'd ever get the opportunity to come back here and stand before you and tell you my story? I never thought it. I thought I was a number. I thought I was going to get my degree and go on with my life. But were it not for Paula, Dr. Jenda, the Office of Diversity and Multicultural Affairs, the Alumni Association, just like when I was here on campus, they kept me engaged. They've done it also in my somewhat silvery years, I guess I would say. I wouldn't trade it for a moment. Yes, the things that I went through when I was here, they were very devastating. They were very discouraging. They were very difficult. But they helped make me who I am. And something that, was it Kendra who did the convocation earlier? She said, you are not limited by your circumstances, only by your mindset. Auburn helped me develop my mindset. Because had I allowed my circumstances to limit me, I wouldn't be standing here before you. I probably wouldn't even be an Auburn alumni. So because someone gave back to help me get through school, that's why I stand before you today. You have the ability to make your Auburn story whatever you want it to be. War Eagle.